I think, that the big thing for me is I learned that, you can't be everything to everybody. And I think if you try to be everything to everybody, you'll soon go downhill because it's exhausting.
This week on Great Conversations, I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Denise McGrouther. Denise is a VP of e-commerce for an international logistics company. Denise McGrouther, welcome to Great Conversations. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Nicola. I am absolutely great.
Yay, that's good. So before we jump in, I would love for you to tell us, who is Denise McGrouther?
Okay, well, Denise McGrouther, born in Liverpool, and from a fairly poor family. We lived in council houses and grew up with a very strict upbringing because we lived in some rough areas. Brought up to have a lot of respect. This really, I guess carries you through life and, having respect for others. I guess my journey has been that I left the UK, I left Liverpool to come here to Australia, to sunny Sydney in 1980. Just initially emigrated, but just really came to have a look for a couple of years. And then having been here now 42 years, which has just flown by. I can't believe it's been 42 years.
Leaving England, because obviously the time then was so different, leaving England in 1980. Talk to me about the Denise that got on a plane and flew to the other side of the world in 1980. When, what did you even know about Australia?
So I knew very, very little about Australia other than the sunshine. So when I first, first left, of course, as well, remember, we didn't have social media. We wrote letters to each other, and even to make a phone call, it was so expensive. So, it was a very, very different era. And I was actually concerned about how well I would settle given, the lack of contact. Even, my favorite soccer team at the time, my dad used to tape them on a tape next to the radio. He used to tape the football matches and then put it in the mail to me. So I get a copy of that game 2 weeks after the game. So it was like, it really was a completely different era. And I'm like, what am I doing? What have I come to? I'm just so far away from everything that I love, and especially, leaving Liverpool and leaving everybody that I loved and held so dear. So yeah, it was a really different experience.
And how did you adapt to that? I mean, because I know, obviously, I've lived abroad, and there's that huge period, isn't there, when you're very excited about, obviously it's a new adventure, but then the reality kicks in and it can be how was it, and what are some of the things that you did that helped you feel settled and Sydney was your home?
I'm not sure Sydney is still my home after 42 years. I still call Liverpool home, believe it or not. But I've certainly got a great lifestyle and I've got amazing friends here. But I think the one thing is the job that I got was in logistics. And at that time, in international logistics, and at that time we used to have a thing called onboard couriers, where the courier would take the mail, it would travel as first class mail. And so you'd get a free trip. So I used to be able to get back home 2-3 times a year for free. I mean, I'd go home for a long weekend, believe it or not, but and so they were the sort of things that was the actual thing that helped me settle. I'm not sure I would have settled quite so well if I hadn't been able to get back, where some people then I'd go back for 10 years. I think that would have killed me. But, the fact that I could get back regularly really made a difference, even if it was just once a year. I guess the other thing is because I did love that role so much that I had, I grew with confidence. Because I think, as I mentioned, I had no idea what I was going to do for a career when I arrived here. Absolutely none whatsoever. And so, this really helped me settle. And I really found a niche in logistics for whatever reason. And having a great company that trained the hell out of me at the time and gave me opportunity was certainly an advantage in helping me settle.
I'm just really curious, how does the younger Denise in Norris Green, what was it about her that laid the foundations for where you are now and the role that you're doing as VP of an international logistics company?
I think the main thing is, I think, as I mentioned, we were we're in council houses. We didn't have any silver spoons. We my parents had to work extremely hard for everything we had, and it wasn't a lot. But, one of the great things that my mom always used to say to me is, you won't get anything in life unless you work for it. Nobody's going to hand this to you. You're going to have to work really hard for everything that you want and that you're going to get. If you're going to have any success. And the other thing as well is that is humility as well. And, because I came from that sort of background, everything here in Australia all of a sudden opens up for you and you're like, oh my, this is unbelievable. So there was no expectation, because as we know, with expectation always brings disappointment. So I had no expectations. I really, truly just came here with an open mind. And then, things just fell into place. We had, it's that values, it's that hardworking, it's that transparency, honesty, all those things that that we learned through our childhood and certainly, through our peer group. Don't get me wrong, wow, we had a lot of fun along the way, a lot of fun. And I think that's a really good combination, because if you're not smiling every day, then, then life's tough.
And just even what you're saying about as you say, the fundamentals of what you learned: work hard, be humble, know that nothing's given to you on a plate. It obviously is sort of, as you say, put you on this path to success. So we fast forward, you mentioned you got a job in logistics when you first landed in Sydney.
Yeah.
What was that like? I can only assume that you were one of how many women? Because logistics, back in the 80s, I'm sure was quite a male dominated industry.
Yeah.
Would that be fair to say?
100%. I was in sales then, so I was in a sales role. So there were a few female salespeople. I was actually promoted to sales manager, to New South Wales sales manager. I think it was around 1985, and I would have been probably the only female sales manager in logistics at that time. My mandate was to really just to build teams and to grow revenue, and that was my sole purpose at that time. I then had two little kids, so at that time I decided, because I had a big international travel job, I decided to move away from the international logistics market and move into domestic. That was completely different as well. I think international at that time had a little bit more finesse, I think. But, I think I still managed to work my way through and ran some awesome companies and had some good managing director roles. And then we were again divested. And then I ended up, I did want to go with the divestment. So this particular company offered me a role managing their cash in transit business. So now we are big armed guards with guns and lots of cash. And so that was a completely different industry again. So I ran that business as well.
So much to unpack there. So I want to go back. Obviously, I want to go back.
Yeah.
So as you said, the male dominated environment, you went from the international business to then domestic Australian truckers. Just talk to me about some of the day-to-day, I guess, difficulties that you had to overcome. You're a beautiful blonde Scouse woman in this environment. Just talk to me about the culture and some of the day-to-day things that you had to navigate.
I think, there's a couple of things. Number one is, a Scouse accent, Nicola, we're not easy to understand. We speak very quickly. So not only was I a woman, I was a pommy woman. And I also spoke extremely fast. So I really had to slow down my accent. So, and I know when I go back to, Liverpool now, everyone thinks I speak like an Australian, but, the bottom line is I had to change my accent very quickly here. Otherwise, it was, people just couldn't understand me.
And then what about being a woman?
Look, being a woman, again, it's very easy to, to be a victim, I think, again. And I've always tried not to be. Yes, have I missed out on promotions over the years? Oh, my goodness me, I have. Have I been really, really peeved about it? Oh, God, I have. Um, has it stopped me from just driving forward? No, absolutely not. And there was a true saying a long, long time ago where they used to say that a woman has to work twice as hard as a man to be proved half as good. I think that's changing. Don't get me wrong; there are still some industries I think that that is still the case, but certainly I think in logistics it is changing. I feel that if as being a woman as well, it's been um, in some ways it can go to your advantage in some
Mm.
areas, but certainly climbing that ladder, and I think me coming through the early 90s with two little kids, that was when I really felt it more than ever being a woman,
Mm.
and how difficult it was. We didn't have flexible working. If you wanted to be considered for a promotion the same as a male, well, you had to come to work. You didn't have that flexibility, and so I had no network here, so it was tough. Then you get to the guilt, right? So that's,
Mm.
we talk about being a woman, a working woman, and being a woman that is wants to really drive a career. That guilt of having two kids at home. Are they missing out? What are they missing out on? Why aren't I there? I should be there. So you've got that constant, push pull. Am I right? Am I wrong? I always used to make sure that I never missed a sports day, never missed a prize giving, those sort of things. I never ever wanted to be the mum that was never there. But it was a challenge, an absolute challenge, in this industry. Fortunately, it's changed.
Like, how did you address that challenge? What are some of the things that you did practically that helped you get through that time?
I got some really good childcare. So
Yeah.
I just didn't just have a plan B, I had a plan C and a plan D. So
Mm.
I had some incredible, fortunately, some incredible childcare at the time. But I also quit my job as well in the international industry. So, and I got a job in the local industry. Kids were in childcare here. My office was here. It was a small business, and then I just built it. So
Mm.
I was at home more than what I
Mm.
would have been on the international role. But I had to walk away from a really good career. I've gone back into the
Yeah.
international market now, but I had to walk away from that. But and that's okay too. That was a choice I made, and I'm
Mm.
glad I did.
If you think back to that time,
Mm.
like what sort of went through your mind and what helped you make that choice? Because I can imagine it was really difficult. Like, as you say, you've worked so hard to get to not only a level of success within an organization, but also, I mean, obviously, I know how much you love your job as well and what you do in the industry. So you have a, a a successful career, and then you're not forced, then you're faced with this choice of having to decide to, as you say, give it up, take a step back, and focus on being a mum.
Yeah.
Like, how did you yeah how did you navigate that?
Do you know what, Nick? There was one, and there's one particular time, and I'll never forget it. It was Christmas Eve, and I was pregnant with my son, and I was coming home from New Zealand, and we had no food in the house, and I had to pick up our daughter from childcare, and then head straight to the supermarket to get some food. At the time, my husband was working the foreign exchange market, so he was working incredibly long hours as well. And I was driving, and I was incredibly emotional, thinking, it's Christmas Eve. Here I am. I'm not, I'm exhausted. I'm pregnant. I was very pregnant. Why am I doing this? What am I doing?
Mm.
And when I got home, I said to my husband, I went, I'm resigning when I get back, and I'm going to finish, in 3 or 4 months' time. He was like, oh, quite shocked at my decision, because knowing that, that was a big thing for me to say that. And it was just, and I felt, you know what, someone's got to be here for these children. And Denise, what are you doing? Reevaluate your life.
Mm.
What is really important to you? And at that time, my children were the most important thing. My career would have to wait. And I thought, well, if I'm any good at what I do, I'll pick it up again at some point in the future. But right now, I've made my decision, and it was just a snap decision. I hadn't even considered it before then. I was going to have the baby. I was going to go back to work. I had childcare set up, so it was a real snap decision and so I didn't have the time to think about it.
Yeah. But then I wonder if there's also a play there, the value that you've talked about with hard work. Like there's a confidence, isn't there? An innate
Mm,
confidence that you believe if you work hard, you'll get the results, and you'd already seen the benefits of that. So
mm,
I I love what you're saying actually of if I'm good at what I can do, I can get it again. And you have.
yeah.
I mean, you're
Hmm.
testament to that, aren't you? And
Yeah.
but it also takes a lot of strength of character and inner confidence as well to make that decision,
Yeah.
because I think particularly in today's day and age, we're sold this fallacy that as women we can have it all, and that you have people that are having to juggle having a career as well as family, and it's
Yeah.
exhausting. It's really difficult for a lot of women out there.
It is, and I really feel for single parents in particular.
Mm.
That these women must do it extremely, extremely tough. Having obviously a partner makes life a lot easier, particularly with things like dropping off, picking up, those sort of things. Because it can be exhausting. But it's also rewarding. To raise two children and still being able to keep my career on track, and two decent kids as well that have both been successful. They're good humans, and I think that's all that we can hope for, is that we've raised two decent humans, and that love life.
And I'm just really interested, like, what if you look back now, what are some of the things that you learned during that period when you were juggling? Yeah, as you say, you're having a successful but in a slightly different direction career,
Mm.
whilst also raising a family. What are some of the things that you learned about yourself?
I think that the big thing for me is I learned that you can't be everything to everybody. And I think if you try to be everything to everybody, you'll soon go downhill, because it's exhausting. So I learned very quickly that and I'm very fortunately, I can put things in compartments. And so if I've had a really, really, really bad day at work, for whatever reason, I'm very fortunate that I don't take that home. So my home life is my home life, my work life is my work life. And I'm probably going to sound very strange here, but I wouldn't be on social media with one person that works with me, for me, or in my company, because my home life and what I do in my home life is my home life. And then, and my business life is my business life. It doesn't mean to say that I don't join activities with my team. I join lots of activities. We do planting trees. We do the Great Escape. We do lots of activities together. But my personal life's my personal life, and I think that the fact that I've been able to do that, and I think that's one thing that is for me has been a great lesson. I mean, in the early days, that's all I did was, obviously because I didn't have a network of people here. So, I socialized, that was all I socialized with was work people, but I found it
Mm.
all too consuming. So I just needed to say, well, I need to step back. That's that. This is this. And then, of course, I've got an amazing network of friends as well. So,
Mm.
I really do. I am very lucky that I've been able to compartmentalize that, the different parts of my life.
And obviously, I mean, what you're talking to is the nirvana. It's what so many people aspire to be able to do when, it's particularly when they talk about, I think a lot of people want work-life balance.
Sure.
And I can understand and that when you were younger, obviously technology wasn't as prevalent as it is now, so it might have been easier in some ways to set those boundaries. Sort of similar when I started in my career, when you left the office, that was the end of your working day. There was
Yeah.
no getting in touch with you. It was only when I was slightly more into my career that we got Blackberries, and then that changed the game. So like, what are some of the things like practically that you do now that would help? So because I think that's what so many people are looking for, is how do you compartmentalize your work and your private life now, given the technological always on era that we live in?
Yeah. Look, that is a lot. It is a big challenge, no doubt about it, and particularly because I report into Europe. So, when I finish my day in the office here, I've quite often got night calls. But one thing I don't do is I don't look at a phone in the middle of the night. I'm not looking at emails. I'm not, I put that aside because it's nothing that can't wait until tomorrow. So, I think that whole technology thing is something that you've just got to put aside, and also. Even when I was having dinner with the kids, obviously mobile phones came in, and I've got their social media. We never had phones at the dinner table. We sat and we had our meal, and we didn't have phones, so that we tried to just at least spend some family time together. But I also think as well is taking time for yourself, and the big one for me is exercising. I love walking. So, I walk, I put my earphones in, and I listen to music. I listen to music, and really just get those steps in. Okay, it means I have to get up an hour earlier in the morning. That's fine. Or I just do an hour when I get home at night. But that I think as well clears my mind.
How do you personally navigate and deal with change? Because you emigrated, you started in this industry that has undergone so much transformation. You have had children, you've come out of international, back into international. So how do you deal with change? Give me some tips.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think the first thing is that, change for change's sake is well, that's I'm not something I'm in favor of, right? However, we all have to go through change. I mean, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. Technology changes. You just have to. It's an acceptance again. You've got to accept, and you've got to move on. And you know what? Every day is a school day for me. Even now at this stage of my life, every day I'm learning something new. So in terms of change, I've just always embraced it. I deal with it in terms of every day is a new day. It's a new challenge. We don't look at the downside of those challenges. We look at the upside of those challenges and what are the solutions. And this is where one of the great things that to my success is I've always surrounded myself by great teams, not good teams. Great teams. And it's interesting how I used to work for a guy, and he used to say the worst thing that ever happened to great was good. So you haven't had a good day, you've had a great day. And I always have a chuckle about that because, it's true. It's like, everything, you've got to look at it as being a positive. Because most things we can turn into a positive if we have that, that mindset and take on challenges as, and embrace them.
Because I was obviously going to ask you, well, how do you do that? How do you accept change? How do you just, look for the upside? And as you say, it is that optimistic mindset, isn't it? It sounds as if you have this ability to I don't know if it's very quickly, but at some point in the midst of change to pause and to say, where's the gift? I'm hearing so much around learning, of like really leveraging, what can I learn here? How can I grow here? What's the gift for me within this situation? And it's such a, for me, it's such a powerful mindset to have, to be, as you say, not being pulled into the midst of despair and focusing too much on what you've lost, but actually really looking at what you can learn, how you can grow, and then that taking you quickly to acceptance so that you can move forward. And you mentioned an old boss. I love that. You've not had a good day, you've had a great day.
Yeah.
I really, really, really love that. Is there anything else that's like, as you were growing up, what you saw, or the role models that helped you acquire that mindset? Or is it just innate? Have you just always been a positive, optimistic, glass half full type of individual?
I think I always have been, to be
Mm.
honest. But I've had some great mentors along the way, and one in particular. And he said he's actually written a book called Radical Simplicity, and it's keeping everything simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Once you start overcomplicating, then you get drawn into somewhere where maybe you don't want to go. So, I've always been, as optimistic as I possibly can. Obviously, God, over the years, I've had some negative days, don't get me wrong, but, 90% of the
Yeah.
time, I would be extremely positive and upbeat.
I'm really loving what you're saying about this mindset, because what you're talking to is not toxic positivity where the world is great and you're ignorant to the challenges that exist in life. I'm hearing that you're very, what you're capable of doing is acknowledging the challenges, but consciously choosing not to get swept up in the despair and the judgment and the anxiety and the worry. Or, like, if you do, being able to sort of take yourself out and really grounding yourself in, I guess, gratitude. It's hearing
Hmm.
like sort of you're very, I'm hearing a real awareness and gratitude for all the good that you have in your life. And that's seems to be a really important anchor of, well,
Hmm.
I've got so many things to celebrate and to be grateful for. And if I
Yeah,
just go into every day, you said it's every day is a new school day. What can I learn today? How can I add more and make my life even better today, rather than
yeah.
focusing on what you don't have? Would
Hmm.
that be fair?
Great summary. Yeah, 100%.
You've spoken about exercise, but are there some things that you do on a daily basis, or like practices that you have? Maybe there's not, but like, are there some practices that really help you every day go into the day with that mindset? Or is it just a lifetime of experience?
Yeah, it's probably just a lifetime of experience, I think. But yeah, look,
Mm.
I do like to exercise. That doesn't happen every day. I am a planner. I do plan, so I will plan what I'm going to do tomorrow. So it's no surprise. So when I get to the office, it's not like, oh, I didn't know about that. I'm a planner. Don't get me wrong. There will be the impromptu. There will be lots of different meetings that will happen that I wasn't expecting. But certainly, I like to plan. I like to know what's happening. To your point, I'm not, I don't bury my head in the sand on challenges, but I certainly don't get down about them. It's like, what are we doing about it?
Yeah. Do you know, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you is you are a role model for many different reasons in my life. One of the reasons why I love you so much is you are somebody who I feel you just love what you do.
I
You
do.
genuinely, your job, it just brings you so much joy and passion, and to witness that is really inspiring. When you get up every day and you do something that you either feel that you were born to do, or that just gives you so much that's really affirming, then I imagine that that's generative. If you go to a job that you hate and pulls you down every day, it must be very difficult to get into this life is great mindset. And so every day you get to go in and do a job that you love and work with people
Mm.
that you find inspiring and amazing. And I'm just really curious, like, what is it that speaks about this job and what you do that speaks to your purpose and that fulfills you so much?
I think the first thing is I work for a company that has an incredible culture, a global company. I've worked for a lot of companies that say they have a great culture, but this company truly have an amazing culture. That makes life a lot easier when you have a lot of global programs that come into the business, and it goes across every employee. So I think the fact that's number one. Number two, that I guess the experience that I've picked up over the last 36 years in logistics, it's an opportunity for me to really bring it to the table in my role that I do at the moment. So I've got that experience. I've got a young team that are really keen to learn. And let me tell you, some of them are like highly intelligent, and I mean highly intelligent. And as they say, always surround yourself by people more intelligent than yourself. And I've certainly done that. So but they're like sponges to learn. They want more. So that inspires me as well. And I just love going. I love going to work every day. There's not one day. And I think that the day that I say that I don't want to go, I won't go anymore. It might be time to retire. But certainly right now, I'm loving what I'm doing. The company seems to be happy with what I'm doing. So, I'm still going.
I always, I keep going back to values. And, if you can build your life around your values, I feel as if that really sets you on this path to living a balanced, fulfilled, healthy life.
Yeah.
And from everything that you've spoken about, I'm just hearing like a lifelong learner, and hard work and connection and honesty are really, or collaboration, connection, are really key values for you. And it sounds like the logistics industry has just given you the opportunity to lean into every single one of them, in how it's set up, in how it's transformed and developed and grown. And yeah, it's so cool.
The thing is as well, Nick, is that when you have, like I have this opportunity where, I love what I do, it's very easy for me, right? If you're in a role that you hate really, really that badly, then I think it's just have the confidence, because I was in a role before I got this role that I hated that badly. And I made a decision. I just said, no, I'm not going to do this. And, it was a stage in my life where I'm thinking, am I employable? And I got this role. And so, just, I think it's just take that chance, but don't be miserable. Don't go to work miserable every day, because life's too short.
Yeah.
So if you're going to really, enjoy your life, you spend a lot of time at work. So you've got to be doing something that you like. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what you talk to, you've mentioned this actually quite a few times throughout our conversation, is this: you've got a high level of self-trust and self-confidence. Like, as you say, if
Yeah.
you trust yourself to work hard, and then as a result to get success from that, like you back yourself. And I think that's often lacking in so many people, is this innate belief in their own ability, and what they
Yeah.
can go on to achieve. And so as you look back on your journey, what would you say is the one of the greatest bits of wisdom that you can impart to other people?
Surround yourself by people that are positive. Surround yourself, and particularly if you have building your team yourself, make sure they're the right team, they're the right fit, that they are really, that they're not just a fit for the business, but they're a fit for you, and they're a fit for each other. There's no point in having a team that just that can't sit together and collaborate and work through a problem, because you get dragged into that. And you end up, because sometimes I'll say, to my team over the years, I've gone, talk peer to peer. I'm not your mother. Talk to each other, work through the problem, and they do, and they can come up with some great solutions. So my thing would be, surround yourself with positive people, and in a business sense, surround yourself with people that can actually do the job, and want to be there, and are not complaining, because that drags everybody else down. So that would be yeah.
Brilliant. And so we have a closing tradition on this podcast where I ask each of my guests, what is something that other people value that you don't?
Okay. I would say, look, one of the things, I don't sweat the small stuff. And some people, might find something trivial to complain about. And I just can't tolerate that. I'm just, why bother? Move on. So I will never engage in that sort of, that at all. I just don't see the point.
I love it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Denise McGrouther, it's been an absolute honour and pleasure. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Okay. Bye.
Oftentimes, I struggle with change, and so I was so inspired by Denise's positive and optimistic attitude and her approach to how she navigates change in her life. And so, if like me, you feel like you want to build more of a tolerance and an ability to navigate change, then check out Integrate, www.integrate.net. Tons of resources and tools to help you get started. As always, I want to thank my editor, Stian Moritz, and musician Jamie Jenkin. Wishing you all so much love. Bye for now.